What's up, y'all? Tim DeGrasse here. So I just want to say thank y'all for watching my last video, the X100V 3-year review. It's got a lot of hits and I'm hoping that we can continue to trend with this one. So I've been using the X-Pro3 for the last 3 years and it's been a phenomenal camera. If you remember when it first came out, it had a little bit of a polarizing design with that rear LCD because it flipped in and it was hidden for most people to just take those quick snapshots. Now for me, it was a little bit of a love-hate relationship because a part of me really wanted to just sit back and focus on my photography and enjoy the process, but then there were other times where I just wanted to take a quick snapshot and it didn't necessarily always work out for me because I always felt like I was working by having to constantly put up my eye to the viewfinder. And with the caveat of the hidden screen, I still ended up buying it because at the time the X-Pro3 looked unlike any camera that I had at the moment. Alright, so a quick disclosure, y'all. I bought this camera with my own money, so no one has reviewed or approved this video before I'm releasing it to y'all. Alright, so one of the first reasons why I got the X-Pro3 was the design, and I don't mean to sound superficial here, but the camera is a fantastic looking camera. It does have those old retro rangefinder vibes from back in the day. But the other reason is because it's built out of titanium. So if you don't know already, the titanium on the X-Pro3 has a special coating on it if you opt for the Dura Black or Dura Silver models. And that just makes it a lot more scratch resistant than the regular painted black model. So for me, I'm a little rough on my gear sometimes, and I just wanted that extra sense of security so that if I were to just throw my camera in the bag or if it banged up against something as I'm walking, outside or, with family or friends or just in an event, taking pictures in a tight space, I wouldn't have to worry about those dings and those dents and those scratches too much. So the X-Pro3 is just as capable as it is good looking. So for example, the ISO goes all the way down to 80 for those really clean images whenever your subject is properly exposed. And you can also record video up to 4K 60 DCI in 8-bit format, all internally to the SD card. So that would be for those moments where you're in a pinch and you want to just capture some video. I wouldn't necessarily rely on the X-Pro3 to, shoot a film. Not that you can't, but I wouldn't rely on it for those professional things, just rather for like BTS, which is behind the scenes work, or, just capturing little moments that you want to have on video. The X-Pro3 also has a fantastic optical viewfinder with a little mini LCD on the inside so that you can still check your focus or look at, what your image is going to be, and you just want to see everything that's around the image. So for example, if I'm doing street photography and I'm capturing, an entire scene and I feel someone's going to walk into it, I can just switch to the optical viewfinder and I can see everything outside of the frame and make sure I can capture that image with or without those people, depending on whatever I'm going for. So I really appreciate the dual card slots on the X-Pro3 just because I can shoot JPEG on one and then shoot RAW on the other, and all of that happens instantaneously. But what might be more helpful is actually duplicating images on that second card slot. So whenever you're shooting a wedding or BTS for a film or anything of that nature, you don't have to worry too much about card A being corrupted and not having a backup. Alright, so while the X-Pro3 is incredibly fun to shoot with, there are a couple of things that I've noticed over the last 3 years that kind of bugged me a little bit in my time in having the camera. And the first is the screen. I really bought into the idea of it being a photographer's camera. And that hidden LCD when you are shooting, it's fun at first, but as time went on, when I wasn't really doing professional gigs or work, and I was just taking pictures of my family and friends and, small events around the house, I felt that I was working because I always had to put up my eye to the optical viewfinder. Sometimes you may just want to chill when you're taking pictures and you don't feel like always looking like a photographer. You just want to, point and shoot. And I think the X-Pro3 just really limits you from pointing and shooting. The only way that you're able to, make this a point and shoot camera is to flip that LCD out. And, for me, that makes it a little bit cumbersome just because if someone bumps into you or you drop the camera, the LCD might crack or pop off or break or whatever. And I just, for the most part, kept it hidden all the time and just relied on the EVF to shoot my images. Now, another thing that really irritated me about the X-Pro, that's a strong word. Another thing that I disliked about that is also a strong word. Another thing that I wish they would have improved on the X-Pro3 is that front command dial. It literally only scrolls. So custom mappings you might have had on another camera won't necessarily translate over to the X-Pro3 if you're used to using that front command dial as a button. And I kind of get it, right? Because it does slow you down, but at the same time, it kind of feels like there's a missing feature that you're so used to on other cameras. And the last thing about the X-Pro3 that can go either way in terms of it being good or bad for you, is the way it's designed. Now, for me, this isn't necessarily a problem because I do appreciate how it's designed for inconspicuous lenses and, moments. But if you have other X series lenses like the 16 to 55, which I use as my workhorse lens, or the 33mm 1.4, or just some of the big primes, then you'll really realize that this camera is bigger and heavier than it ought to be. Now, for me personally, I don't really like big cameras too much, so I did end up going with the Voigtlander 35mm 1.2 for the Fuji X mount, and it is a fantastic lens. I'm going to do a review on it, and I'll pop it up in this video too as well. I just think that if you're going to get the X-Pro3, you should probably try to find the smallest lens possible, just so that you can enjoy this camera the way it's meant to be enjoyed. You want this camera to be as inconspicuous as, it looks. And you don't want to, especially with that hidden LCD, feel like you're at work all the time. The way the body shape is with that thin grip, big lenses like the 16 to 55 or some of the 1.4 primes are just gonna be a little bit off-centered with the body weight of the camera. But like I said, I have the Voigtlander 35mm 1.2, and the aesthetics of that lens just really matches the X-Pro3 perfectly. The lens is fully manual, so it kind of goes along with the design choices of the X-Pro3. So please enjoy these photos that I've taken over the last 3 years during moments that I actually had to slow down with the X-Pro3. Alright, so I hope y'all enjoyed those photos. So when I think about my time over the last 3 years with the X-Pro3, the question has come up, did Fuji make the right choice when it comes to the design? I absolutely think they did, and the reason why I say that is because when you really think about it, the X-Pro3 was the first camera that truly deviated towards its own audience. For example, you have the X-T5 for photographers who want to shoot great video. Then you have the X-H2 and 2S for professional filmmakers who want to dabble in photography. And then you have the X-Pro3, which is purely for photographers. Each one of these cameras has its own body style and functionality that is suited for the audience that it's going after. So, I don't foresee Fuji changing anything in future iterations when it comes to the X-Pro3. And when you think about it, this camera was their first passion project. Peace.